to chair remotely.
Yep. Yeah, not a problem.
I might say meetings by then. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm assuming that means we've hit the 4 o'clock in the boardroom. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 9th Qathet Regional District Board meeting. I want to recognize we're holding the meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. We have our agendas in front of us. Are there any changes? I understand we are now going to an in-camera session. I do not have that agenda in front of me. We'll deal with that at that time. But corporate officer, you have a comment? Or sorry, acting CAO.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to add a motion to 15.1 to go in camera, and at that time, I'll read out the motion for the committee to or the board to consider.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So with that modification to the agenda, do I have somebody that would like to make the motion to approve it?
Move approval of the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Director Fall, seconded by Director Gisborne. All in favor? I assume everybody was okay with that. I couldn't see everybody, so we will move on. Adoption of the minutes of the June 25th, 2025 board meeting. Any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, so motion to adopt. Directors Lennox and Gisborne, thank you very much. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, no delegations or inquiries, no unfinished business. We have 3 items of correspondence. Does anybody have any business to do with said correspondence? Director Lennox.
Yeah, 6.1.
Okay, 6.1 is now 7.1. Seeing no other hands, we'll move on to item 7.1. Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. As you can see, we've received some correspondence recently from one of my constituents in Area A, and I've had some good discussions with her over the last couple of weeks. But I wanted to basically have our financial staff. There's a statement in the correspondence about from the tax breakdown brochure, there's a significant portion of regional taxes going towards upgrades to the Lund water system, and some comments on that. So even though I think that's an incorrect statement, I just like our manager of finance, or maybe Ms. Lillies, to clarify for our correspondence.
Ms. Lillies, do you have comments to be made?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I was reading the letter myself, and I noticed that she indicated that she thought a parcel tax would be an appropriate change to the usual levy based on assessed property values. And I just wanted to comment that the Local Government Act under Section 378, Part 2, it states that, well, in Part 1, a regional district may recover the cost of its services by one or more of the following, and it talks about property value taxes and then a few other things. But in Part 2, it says specifically that parcel taxes may not be used to recover all or part of the costs of a regulatory service. So that is not an option. And I also wanted to just comment that because I know she's talking specifically about the Lund water system. I just wanted to point out that we do have a grant for that, and the grant amount is over $11 million. So we have pursued that as well. So although we haven't worked out yet what the amount will be that will end up being borrowed, we do have a significant grant there. So
Thanks for that explanation. And just to be specific, it was the comment about that the regional taxes are going toward the upgrade to Lund's water system, and that's just not factually true. There are grants involved, and the users of the system are paying for the service. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, great. So moving on to consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they wish to pull from the consent agenda? I'm seeing no hands, so would somebody like to move it? Director Gisborne, Director Lennox, thank you very much. Calling the question, all in favor? That is unanimous. Great. Moving down to resolutions, 10.1. Annie Wise, Executive Director, Sunshine Coast Tourism, RE, the Sunshine Coast Tourism Annual Report. How do we wish to move with this? Does somebody like to move the recommendation?
I'll move the motion.
Thank you, Director Fall, seconded by
Second.
Director Gisborne. Thank you. Any comments? Director Gisborne, and then Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. When we dealt with this at the committee of the whole or finance, I don't remember anymore. My thoughts on this motion was that, it's the MRDT is being applied to go from 2% to 3%. There's also some comments around like how that MRDT is split up, like how much of it goes to Sunshine Coast Tourism, how much goes to us. And I wasn't entirely clear on like how that gets broken down. So I'm wondering if our staff could help me understand. Does all of the qathet region's MRDT come to the QRD and then we distribute it? Or is there some that comes to us and some that goes to Sunshine Coast Tourism? Like, how does that actually break down is my big question.
Okay, who would like to tackle that one? Ms. Lillies?
Yes, thank you through the chair. The amount that would be coming to us annually, we have been forwarding to the Sunshine Coast Tourism. So that is an option. It's different every year, the amount, but it comes from those online payments. That's the portion that would be coming to the regional district. So that is our option to determine what we want to do with those funds. But there are different things they can be used for, but they are limited in what you can use them for as well. So.
Okay, thank you. I believe it's the Sunshine Coast Tourism sends us the MRDT funding, correct? And I don't believe it goes to, say, the city of Powell River. I think it's just the qathet Regional District.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, so the amount is collected for tourism. It would be received by us, like it's supposed to come to us and we can use it. It can be used for tourism, but they added some additional areas that you can use it for providing or increasing your available affordable housing in the area. So that's sort of just an additional area that they added that you can use the funds for. So we had made that decision to forward those funds to the other society that was going to be using that for those homes, the construction of those homes for rentals.
Right. I believe it's part of PRESS, the
Right.
Powell River Education Services Society. Director Gisborne, did you have a follow-up there?
Yeah. Thanks. That helps me understand. So it's just the online portion of the booking, and we get that money coming in our account, and we send a bunch to Sunshine Coast Tourism, what I'm understanding, and that's where I'm just kind of confused, is because we had an amount that we gave to press this year, but there's also an amount that goes to Sunshine Coast Tourism, and I'm just like, that's kind of where I'm a little confused, is like, do we get all of it and give some of it to Sunshine Coast Tourism? And I know this is something that I think we've requested in part of the service review of social planning, but it's relevant for this motion.
Okay, Ms. Lillies, you have something to add to that?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Again, those funds that would be ours to determine what we want to do with them is the amount for the online bookings. And then the other portion is the ones that are collected at hotels and other motels and such, and that is the amount that goes directly to tourism. But the online portion is what we have the discretion to do with what we would like.
Okay, so if this motion passes, then our portion could potentially increase by 50% because this application to go from 2% to 3% would also impact the funding that we get from the electronic booking option. Okay.
Go
I
ahead,
think
Ms.
I understand.
Lilies.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. That's correct.
Kind of figured it out.
Sorry, Director Elliott, and then Director Lennox.
So I'm a little bit curious about whether any of the tourism operators that might be impacted by having to increase the tax they're charging have wrote any letters or said anything about this motion that was on the agenda. And then secondary to that, what we're calling online is the short-term rentals through Airbnb and Verbo and those types of things. And I was under this understanding that only part of that came to us for affordable housing and the other part went to Sunshine Coast or Sunshine Tourism, sorry. And we still don't really know what that split is. Like, is it 1.5%, all 2%, or what is it? And so those are the questions I had.
I believe, and I'll defer to Miss Lilies on this, but I believe the Lower Sunshine Coast gets half and we get half of everything that is collected in the entire Sunshine Coast. But if Miss Lilies, if you have comments to make, I'd like to hear them.
Thank you, through the chair. I know at the presentation at the last meeting that they made, the presenter indicated that they can't really provide too much information about how the portion that we receive versus the portion that stays in the other areas is split. But I do know that it is the online portion that we are receiving. But I don't know exactly like what percentage we're getting out of the whole amount.
Okay, thank you, Director.
That wasn't my question though.
Okay, go ahead.
So go to an Airbnb and they charge a 3% MRDT tax, and it's an Airbnb that is in our area or whatever. Is all of the 3% coming to the QRD, or is only a portion of that 3% coming to the QRD?
Go ahead, Ms. Lilies.
Well, which part is the housing part and which part is the tourism marketing part?
Go ahead, Ms. Lilies.
Thank you, through the chair. It is the full percentage from what I understand, but it is the online portion only.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That was my question.
Okay, great. Director Lennox, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ms. Lilies. And we're trying to work with you here just for our understanding. So when I look at page 20 of 33 in the report, what I see from Sunshine Coast Tourism is MRDT is the second line item of 650,000 for 2024, and then 822. And then in the expenses, it says affordable housing, 220,000. That number stands out to me as the amount that was transferred to us for housing. Am I correct or not?
Go ahead, Ms. Lilies.
Thank you, through the chair. You are looking at the 650,000 in revenue for Sunshine Coast Tourism Society. Yep. I believe that is the amount that that's not from us. That is their portion that they're getting through all of the hotels. Sorry, what was the second?
Yeah, I'm looking for, I guess, like Director Elliott, sort of what is the amount that the QRD is receiving and using for that housing initiative?
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
Through the chair. I know that in 2025, it is about 105,000.
And just
Okay.
a quick follow-up,
Sure.
just speaking to, we have the motion before us here, I believe. I've got some concerns. When I read the report, as far as short-term rentals, and in the report is very clear that those are actually decreased lately. You know, looking at the historical trends, the short-term rentals are decreasing in my area at least. And I have, to Director Elliott's point, I have had some correspondence from constituents that have these available, and they're concerned with both the new BC government requirements for registry, but also the amount that they're paying for tax and what it's being used for. Appreciate housing is important, but I guess my question is, if we were to vote for this, or no matter what, 3 or 2%, do we have any capability of then discussing what the funds are used for? Or if we sign this agreement, are we committed for 5 years for another housing initiative and that's it?
A separate decision.
Housing thing, it's whatever Sunshine Coast.
Well, whatever they want to do. Do we have decision-making power within this, or is that a separate process?
Okay, I see Ms. Rodden's hand up. Go ahead.
The chair, yeah, I can answer that question. That money is intended for affordable housing initiatives. And there is some discretion there. The province sets out the terms for how the funds are used, but it is for affordable housing.
Okay, thank you very much. I saw Director Fall's hand up.
Yes, thank you. So there are two pieces to this motion. One is to support the request for renewal, and the other is to support the request to increase from 2% to 3%. The main part of the motion is the letter. There's a draft letter. So, the main guts of or core of the motion is the letter that's on page 89 of our 153-page agenda package, which is after all the financial stuff, which is basically saying, at the committee of the whole meeting, it actually shouldn't say committee of the whole, at the board meeting, the QRD board unanimously resolved to support the application for renewal of the MRDT, and then they talk about 3%. So that's what, so they're asking for that. And in terms of, so I support that. I think really there's this renewal. Now the renewal, the letter itself doesn't, specify exactly how that funding has to be spent. There are options. We have been using it for affordable. I think that isn't necessarily set in stone, but the main core of this is to support Sunshine Coast Tourism, to ask for the province to renew it so that they keep getting money from the province for MRDT. And if we support it, to go from 2% to 3%, which I do support. Now, I'd like to clarify, I can clarify a little bit on the numbers. If you look at the page that Director Lennox was talking about, the revenue of in 2024, 822,000, that, I agree that with Ms. Lilly's, that's the total amount of MRDT received by Sunshine Coast Tourism. But then you have to look at where the expenses are, the 220,000 that Director Lennox identified, affordable housing contribution. There is more information on that 3 pages down. There's another table on restricted cash. And so that explains the MRDT is considered restricted cash. The society, Sunshine Coast Tourism, receives restricted funding from the government of BC received to provide affordable housing. So what Ms. Rodden was saying, so that's for affordable housing, 222,000. That's how much Sunshine Coast Tourism receives, and that goes between the 2 regional districts. So that's why, as Ms. Lilly's just said, 105,000. So I don't know if it's exactly half. It's whatever. About half of that is for us. So that's the funding. And of course, then, we've had other discussions about what we can choose to do with that, but that's where that is. So in other words, if we support the increase from 2% to 3%, that would be across the board on the MRDT, but it would translate to a 50% increase in the amount of MRDT we get under that restricted funding for affordable housing. And so provided the number, of course, this is a function of how many short-term online accommodations are provided, as Director Lennox said. And I just add to that the province has new rules regarding registration of Airbnbs and other short-term accommodations. They must be registered to be able to advertise in online. So that actually, in principle, even if the numbers may or may not go up or down, but then the number of accommodations that must be registered and then therefore must be going to be able to advertise on these online platforms will go up maybe, and then that will make sure everyone's paying their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do I see any other hands? Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I guess now I'm back to being a little confused again. When I take a look at Sunshine Coast Tourism Society's budget, which is page 20 of 33 of that report, and this is in relation to what Director Fall was talking about, when I see that $220,000 for affordable housing contribution, my understanding is that is Sunshine Coast Tourism's money that they can choose to put towards affordable housing contributions. And the $105,000 that we had last year, that comes directly to us, and that doesn't actually show up in the Sunshine Coast Tourism Society's finances, because that money just comes straight to us. I think that's what is actually kind of going on here. One of my concerns that's come up with this, and this is, I'm really grateful that another director pointed this out, like the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, which, let's call it what it is, the Hotel Protection Act, because that's the industry that wrote it. It seems to be really crushing the Airbnb and short-term rentals, and that's actually where we get our funding from. And that amount is going down because of those extra government restrictions. Whereas the hotel fees will, of course, continue to be strengthened because they're protected by this nice Accommodation Act. So if we do go to 3%, are we actually going to see a 50% increase in our revenue? Because what we've been hearing is short-term rentals through this legislation is actually tamping down on the amount of bookings and stuff that's going on. So our funding, even if it goes up by 50%, the total amount is going down. So we might not see a 50% increase in our funds. Now that makes me kind of go, okay, if we're only getting the MRDT from the short-term rental market, which is getting crushed, why don't we also get access to the hotel MRDT as well? Like, is that an option where we, the regional district, can say, you know what, province, send us the 3% MRDT, and we'll provide the funding to Sunshine Coast Tourism and what other organizations we deem appropriate to promote tourism in our community. Because it also has been in my mind that we provide a lot of funding through grants to organizations for things like Sandcastle and Music Festival and Jazz Festivals. Those promote tourism in our community, and we always speak about how highly of a nice job they do, but we always seem to run out of money. And I'm wondering, maybe one day we can use some of that MRDT to promote those events, to promote tourism in our region. And I'm just, I'm a little concerned with locking into a 5-year agreement where Sunshine Coast Tourism, they do great work, but they're going to be getting the lion's share of the funding. And the amount that we get may go up by 50%, but most likely will be less, because what we're hearing is the Hotel Protection Act, it is doing what it's doing. It's protecting the hotels. So I'm not entirely sure I'm convinced with this motion at this time. Do we have to make a decision today, or could we postpone it until our next meeting at the end of August?
Okay, I'm seeing no other hands. Well, sorry, Ms. Lillies, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, through the chair. I know at the presentation, the presenter indicated that they were possibly willing to support those initiatives that, you're mentioning, like that we would want to support, like the Sandcastle and things like that. So it's not, we don't have access to those additional funds, but I know they indicated that they would maybe be willing to support some of those as well.
Okay, thank you for the information. I'm seeing no other hands at this time, so I think I'm going to call the question on this. All in favor? I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? Directors Gisborne and Lennox, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.2, terms of reference for standing committees. We have a recommendation in front of us. Would somebody like to move that? Or an alternative?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Director Fall. seconded by Director Elliott. Any discussion? Director Gisborne.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Good documents, well written. I read through them. I'm like, no, they're clear, they're proper, they're professional. However, my concern has been most of the information in here is already covered by other policies and procedures and legislation in the Local Government Act and Community Charter. And standing committees are at the discretion of the chair. And I just see this as extra paperwork, extra bureaucracy, that the board is the one that is directing and requesting this. We requested this, was it 2022? I don't remember. But yeah, I just see this as adding more redundancy paperwork for future boards and future elected officials. I don't see it as solving a problem that's entirely necessary for us, but that's the will of the assembly.
Okay. Seeing no other hands at this time, we'll call the question. All in favor? 6 in favor and opposed. Director Gisborne. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to bylaws. 12.1. Can I get somebody to read that out for us?
Oh, I can read it.
Director Lennox, thank you.
Since I started yapping, sorry, Chair.
All right.
Should I move them separately, I guess? Yes.
Yep, go for number 1.
So I'll move that the board give first and second reading of qathet Regional District Solid Waste Regulation and Tipping Fee Bylaw number 602, 2025.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, big thanks to our staff for getting this for us. I know this was board direction, quick turnaround. The one thing though that comes to my mind, and I was hoping this would come before a committee meeting, but I recognize that we're going to be on holiday for almost 2 months. There was another classification of waste that isn't identified in here, but I think it should be. And it's something that we're all aware of. ICI, industrial, commercial, and institutional recycling. Right now, I've been hearing from everywhere from schools to businesses, when they get recycled material and they bring it to the regional district, it goes essentially into the garbage because ICI isn't being covered by the Recycle BC program and all that kind of fun stuff. So part of this regulation is going to drastically increase tipping fees for municipal solid waste. And I'm looking at it going, we got to address the ICI elephant in the room. I think we should have a tipping fee for commercial, industrial, institutional waste, or not waste, recycled materials that is less than the current or proposed MSW rate of going up to $420 a ton. Maybe $200 a ton for ICI, just so that it gets these businesses and institutions to get it on their radar to go like, hey, there actually is a way to save money by trying to do this recycling. And I got to apologize to Jason and everyone else here, because I didn't even think about this until it was like this weekend, and I was sitting on the excavator and I went, wait a minute. So is it okay with that? Like, can we just adopt this and then have a subsequent motion about adding a clause for ICI? Is that too much to ask? Because I know ICI is a big issue in our community, especially, when schools have kids and they're like, oh yeah, all the paper we just send to the dump because we can't recycle it with our current waste stream. So I'm just wondering, is there any feedback on staff? Is there a way to add ICI to that list?
I see Mr. Cohenhoven's hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. So ICI is a big one. It was addressed in the original report as one of the material plans that are in progress, and we're going to present it separately at a future meeting. It is a big animal. It's a lot of different material streams with different shipping logistics. So I think it deserves its own time. Rather than throwing one fee on it, I request respectfully, just give us a little more time to come up with those numbers and those plans for you. Because what I'd like to avoid is saying that we do the recycling without actually being able to do the recycling.
No,
Okay.
very good. In that
Thank-
case, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Cohenhoven. Seeing no other hands, we'll call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. So, Director Lennox, moving on to number 2.
Yep, thanks, Chair. I move that the board give third reading of the Qathet Regional District Solid Waste Regulation and Tipping Fee Bylaw number 602/2025.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries unanimously. And
I move that the board adopt Qathet Regional District Solid Waste Regulation and Tipping Fee Bylaw number 602/2025.
seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion? Director Gisborne?
Yeah. So members of the public that are watching, my understanding of this is come September 1st, tipping fees will be applied as was previously discussed, with municipal solid waste being at $350 a ton, but then come January 1st, going up to $420 a ton. So once this bylaw is adopted, as I've been telling people throughout the community, if you got garbage that you've been holding on to, get it in there before too long, because it's going to cost you more money. Is that a correct understanding and assumption of this bylaw?
Mr. Cohenhoven?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, good. In that case, I'm ready to vote.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Fantastic. That passes. Okay, moving on. No new business question, or right, there's no new business? That's right. Question period.
No, 15-1 now.
Mr. Galinsky, are you on? I guess not.
After, sorry.
Okay, so we do have an in-camera session, but I do not have the motion in front of me. Acting CAO.
Thank you, Chair. May I read the motion for the board to consider?
Please do.
That the board move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to the community charter under section 9. B, labor relations or other employee relations. K, negotiation related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a regional district service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the board reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the regional district if they were held in public. And the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2, and 2, a part of a board meeting must be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. B, consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make that motion? Okay, Director Elliott, seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion? See none. All in favor? Motion carries. We're going in camera.
What time?
you, Chair. Just wait for the recording to start and we will be back.
Sounds good.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we are back from the in-camera session and we have no rise and report. So we've reached the end of our agenda and we are adjourned. I hope everybody enjoys their time off of Qathet Regional District meetings, and I hope you have a really pleasant summer. Look forward to seeing you again.
Come fishing.
I'm all over that, buddy.
Recording stopped.